is also a lawyer, Celestine Mukandila. Counsel, welcome to Matters Arising.
Thank you very much, comrade, and thanks very much to everyone for having me here.
Awesome. Remember that this is an interactive program. We always enjoy hearing from you and allowing you to be part of the conversation. Time allowing, there is a number on your screen that you can use to be part of the conversation. But also don't forget, we're coming to you live on various platforms, on Topstar, GoTV, DSTV, Zuku, Star Times. The channels are showing on your screen. But also live on our social media handle, that's Prime Television Zambia on Facebook and YouTube. Go there, drop in your comments, questions, and contributions. We'll be glad to hear from you tonight. Council, I know so much has happened. First of all, in the Patriotic Front, in the country. But let's begin by checking how the PF is. How is the PF doing? You were recently appointed as Deputy Secretary General. Congratulations on that appointment.
Thank you very much, comrade. And I would like to commence by indicating that the Patriotic Front is doing extremely well. And of course, challenges here and there. But the reality is the Patriotic Front is doing very well. Challenges will always come when you're dealing with an institution or an organization which is extremely as attractive as the Patriotic Front. And of course, we've got this leadership issue happening where we will be going for a general conference. And because of some few hinges here and there, of course, you'll see certain individuals deciding to create camps within the internal process of the party. But these are normal things, normal processes. It is expected. But at the end of the day, it is expected that the Patriotic Front will emerge extremely strong at the end of the day.
Awesome. When you say that the PF is strong, you're also acknowledging the various legal battles that are there. This convention has been a conversation that has been going on for quite some time. Do we see it with now 7-8 months to the election? Do we see this convention coming forth?
Definitely. The conference for the Patriotic Front actually is supposed to occur every 5 years, as a matter of fact. This party's conference, when you look at the law, the constitution of the Patriotic Front, actually entails that the conference should or must occur not later than April, as a matter of fact. So we are still within time. The reality is it must not just happen later than April, but we are going to go for the conference. Whether we like it or not, it is constitutional. So we must do it for the reassurance of posterity.
Amidst the legal battles.
Yeah, so the legal battle, you see, there comes a time when constitutional provisions will need to supersede certain actions. And at that point, I think it's also very possible for applications to be made before court to request, to inform the court of the provisions of the Constitution. Besides, I am very much aware that the courts today are actually in possession of the Patriotic Front constitutions. And you cannot even assume that the courts have not read the provisions of the Constitution of the Patriotic Front. So we're very hopeful. We'll sail this very swiftly, of course, with a lot of turbulences here and there, a lot of waves on the sea. But I think we'll emerge very victorious and very successful. We should be able to conclude these matters very soon.
I'll come to some of the details happening in the Patriotic Front for the benefit of my viewers tonight. But you and Munia Zulu commenced some legal proceedings in the courts of law. That case has been the talk of many, in trying to discuss, the now assented BU7 into law. You argued in that particular case, and of course the Constitutional Court, ruled in your favor. But despite all this, the bill is now law. What's your view? What's your take?
Well, I would say my take still remains. We must ensure that constitutional protection becomes core in a democracy such as ours. It's extremely important. Now, in the process of remaining patriotic and in the process of ensuring that the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia is protected and defended, we decided to undertake an action into the Constitutional Court. and challenged the process upon which this government commenced to come up with Bill 7. Now, Bill number 7 was actually declared to have gone against the process enshrined in the Constitution, against the spirit of the Constitution. And in our judgment, you'll get to see, which is the case of Celestine Mkandila and Muniri Zulu versus the Attorney General. You'll get to realize that the court was very explicit, that the process that was undertaken by the respondent to commence the process of amending the bill, amending the Constitution, or coming up with the bill, was an illegitimate process. It went against the spirit of the Constitution. So in essence, clearly speaking, Bill 7 was an illegal document which was unconstitutional. And the court actually indicated that not one provision of the Constitution, but 10 provisions of the Constitution were abrogated by the respondent. And the court went further to give an order as to what ought to be done. And the court indicated that there is need for a consultative process to be done by an independent body of experts, which shall do the consultation, and they should come up with that bill. Now, when you look at the judgment of the court, it should have been page J23, and specifically paragraph 51. It will explain to you that the process that must be undertaken should replicate previous processes. You get it? It must replicate previous processes. Now, in essence, you'll get to realize that the previous processes gave the Zambian people what we call a legitimate expectation as to how constitutions are enacted in Zambia. So, when you look at this, the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia can only, now we've got a process upon which to amend the Constitution, can only be done following the guidance of the court. Now, did we have government following the guidance of the court? Definitely not. The government of the Republic of Zambia did not replicate the process that was undertaken by previous committees or previous commissions in coming up with the bill. And remember, this bill that you're looking at, the process was declared to have gone against the spirit of the Constitution. And therefore, the process was an illegitimate and illegal process, unconstitutional process. Because process protects content, that content of Bill 7 stemmed out to be unconstitutional. Now, bear in mind, the most important thing to understand from our judgment was that the process is what was considered illegal. Without going into the content of Bill 7 first, the process of coming up with Bill 7 was unconstitutional. And therefore, whatever results from an illegal process can never be considered as a constitutional document that you can use to proceed with the process. Even if going forward, you'll be able to legitimize the process. Now, you can never use an illegitimate process or an illegitimate document and decide that that same document should be used in the National Assembly for the sake of enacting a law, so as to ensure that you rubber stamp the illegality in retrospect. You can't do that. You can't do that. So now, comrades and colleagues, I've seen President Hakainde and his cohorts celebrating that now they have enacted Bill 7. We saw them celebrating. We saw them indicating that 135 members of parliament signed or voted for that bill. But that notwithstanding is the fact that there are still matters before court. Now, the moment this was done, the moment I saw President Hakainde signing that bill into law, I told myself to say, this is a second most apparent abrogation of our constitution that has been done by President Hakainde.
Maybe just to ensure that people are following, when you went to court on those that ruling, the understanding of most people and different schools of thoughts have been submitted indicate that the establishment of the technical committee was in respect of that judgment. The consultation that took place countrywide in all the provinces and districts was to respond to the decision from the court to ensure that the Zambians are part and parcel of the process. So, in the understanding of some people, the coming up with a committee, going around and getting 11,800 submissions was to respond to the decision from the court. Isn't that the case? Doesn't that suffice?
I think at this point it's extremely important for me to read the part of the judgment that deals with the relief. If anything, before I can even go to the relief, I want you to understand the ratio decidendi, the decision for the courts, the reason for deciding by the court. When you look at paragraph 51, and I want the Zambian people to really consider this and understand this. Paragraph 51 of the judgment starts, as I quote, it says, in our considered view, the TCDZC, which is the Technical Committee on Drafting the Constitution process, should be replicated or something of similar magnitude. Persuade in initiating constitutional amendment. It goes on to say, it constitutes what we understand to be the wide consultative process necessary to alter the existing content of the Constitution. It goes on to say, state actors should be facilitators of a people-driven process led by an independent committee of experts, which should collect views directly from the people and existing records of submissions by the people. Only after these proposals are put to the people in a structured manner, such as through district, provincial, national level discussions, and adoption can be put through the process in Article 79 of the Constitution. Let me read this again. Only after these proposals are put to the people in a structured manner, such as through district, provincial, national level discussion, and the adoption put through the process of. So this talks about district consultations. Were there any district consultations that were conducted?
That's what the technical committee were doing.
The technical committee, let's be very honest, the technical committee were based in provincial centers. They did not go to all the districts. They went to provincial centers. Let's be very realistic. These are things that can be seen. Facts speak for themselves. These colleagues were seated in provincial centers. For example, in Luapula, they were in Mansa. In Southern Province, they were in Choma. In Western Province, they were in Mongu. In Lusaka, they were just in Lusaka district.
There were virtual,
so listen, my brother.
District level.
The guidance of the court.
The technicality on how the consultations are done, counsel, could be quite subjective. I don't.
Sir, let me read the guidance of the court again.
Yes.
And I want us not to put words in the court's mouth. Very important. It said, only after these proposals are put to the people in a structured manner, such as through district, provincial, and national level discussions. We did not have these guys. The court is wary of the fact that we are in the 21st century. But the court has insisted on district consultations.
Which form can be decided by the committee?
No,
because there's no guidance on the form, because the committee even set up, for example, suggestions
and
further in all the districts.
And further to this, extremely important to note, it must be a committee of experts that gathers the views from the people. When you get those views, this technical expert committee will now sit and analyze and come up with the provisions.
Which they did.
No, these colleagues were given terms of references that went to rubber stamp provisions
I don't
of
think
Bill
so.
7.
And maybe let's.
And further to this,
Yeah.
let me be very clear here.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that are in the public domain.
Yes.
The colleagues decided, government decided, to issue terms of references of a magnitude of the replicate of what was contained in Bill 7. The replicate of what was contained in Bill 7. They told them to say, go out and obtain views from the Zambian people as to how they would want us to deal with an issue to do with ministers, an issue to do with delimitation, an issue to... What they should have done, according to the court judgment, they should have first begun by ensuring that they get the views from the people. From those views, they now come up. So the form of the bill was supposed to be structured by the technical committee. Did Bill 7 come from the technical committee? The answer is no. Bill 7 came from the state, from the Zambian government. It is the same bill. Remember, this is the same bill that they just revived. And they said, no, consultations have been done. Now, at what point have the Zambian people even consulted with these guys called the technical and even the select committees to the extent of referring to the report of the technical committee? And realistically, let's be very realistic. We are dealing with the Constitution of the Republic.
Maybe the challenge is that you had a... because this can be interpreted in different ways. That one we need to appreciate. This can be interpreted because the format of consultation can be decided as not being provided for in that judgment. The committee can decide what format to use in consulting people at district level. Isn't that the case, Mr. Mkanjela?
So, you know, when you are consulting people, and understand this, the consultation rendered and the court indicating to say it should replicate previous processes, it is because, and that's the reason why we even took the matter to court, because we felt that the process that was undertaken was not a replica of the legitimate expectation that the Zambian people have on the process of amending the constitution. So these colleagues did not replicate the process, and they were supposed to come up with a bill. The technical committee were supposed to come up with a bill. Let's be clear about that. That Bill 7 was, it fell short of the glory of the Zambian people, if I may say that. Bill 7, according to the judgment, and maybe let me read the judgment now, going to the relief. The relief from the court includes the following. We declare that the decision by the respondent to initiate a constitution amendment process before undertaking wide consultation with the people goes against the spirit of Articles 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 61, 90, 91, and 92 of the Constitution. So, it's clear. It says the process, the decision by the respondent to initiate a constitutional amendment process. In short, the process of the bill coming up was against the provisions that I read. 10 provisions. And it went on to say, we order that, and this is an order of court now, we order that the respondent complies with the spirit of the Constitution by ensuring a people-driven process led by an independent body of experts in conducting wide consultations with the people. Now, it takes you back to what process it is that will be similar to the order of court. It should be one that replicates previous processes. And these colleagues were supposed to come up with a bill. Maybe it's important for you to look at the terms of references also. The terms of references say, technical committee on drafting the bill, on coming up with a bill for amending the constitution.
There are many other issues that they also, included in their report, in the 147-page report.
Sir, I don't dispute there is a report.
Yes.
But from that report, our colleagues needed to come up with a bill The bill is what was supposed to be subjected before the House, and not Bill 7. Bill 7 is already illegal. Bill 7 is already unconstitutional. Now, let me be very clear, in no uncertain terms, and there are a lot of constitutional lawyers out there, and a lot of lawyers perhaps out there. Every person knows that you cannot use the legislature to rubber stamp or legitimize an unconstitutional or an illegal bill. Remember, the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia is premised on the fact that it has what we call supremacy. It is the grand norm. Any other law that is inconsistent with this constitution is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. That is what the Constitution says, to the extent of its inconsistency. And therefore, Bill 7 was inconsistent to the provisions of this Constitution.
Well,
and it remains a nullity to the extent of the inconsistency. Now, let me draw you back to the legalities around it. The constituent authority of the National Assembly emanates from the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. The power that the National Assembly has to make law comes from the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. The constituent authority of the courts, now let's look at the Constitutional Court, emanates from the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. And therefore, any conduct that is unconstitutional on the part of the National Assembly remains unconstitutional, and as such, it cannot use the process within the National Assembly to legitimize an unconstitutional process. And I'll tell you, comrade, I am one who has vowed to protect and defend the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. Until I am given a satisfactory answer by the Constitutional Court, will I respect the decision that has been taken to amend this Constitution by President Hakainde Hichilema. Because for me, having been a lawyer and a person who's sworn in to protect and defend the Constitution, and being a person who took this matter to court and challenged the process of coming up with that bill, knowing very well that this bill, which was called Bill 7, was found to be against the spirit of the Constitution. 10 provisions of the Constitution were violated, and therefore it remained an unconstitutional bill. We cannot use the process outlined in Article 79 to legitimize the illegality. That we cannot do. The law cannot be retrospectively legitimize a process. It can't. The courts can't. Not even the legislature, the National Assembly, they can't. And these are very basic legal issues. And that is why I'm telling you, by the way, may I remind President Hakainde and just tell him to say, sir, you've celebrated too early.
Oh, it's now law.
And I'll tell you the reason why. No, let me tell you, my brother. Let me tell you. And I want the Zambian people to know. I am not speaking from without. I'm speaking from the basis of law. Yes, Bill 7 is now law. Now we've got Constitutional Amendment Act number 7 of 2025. Is that agreeable? Yes, it is agreeable. It is law. However, the challenge that is in court, in an event, remember the constituent authority of the courts of law in Zambia, of the Constitutional Court, emanate from this very constitution. So, in an event where the courts decide that Bill 7 ought to have been withdrawn from the floor of the House, and it is contemptuous to have kept it on the floor of the House, then at that point,
what happens? The
court will now go further to explain or indicate that anything done preceding this cannot legitimize Bill 7. It can't. These are clear legal principles. Any reasonable lawyer who reads and understands constitutional law, they will tell you to say you can't use the premise of Article 79 of the Constitution to legitimize a wrong.
Different lawyers have different perspective on this matter. I think we've known others have interpreted it quite different when it comes to even how many people need to be consulted. Others, look, there's no law that decides how many people you need to consult. Yes, the judgment indicated wider consultation. Whether the 11,000 was wide or not, there's no basis to argue. There's no legal basis, to argue. When we talk about, independent committee, yes, you've raised concerns that was not an independent committee, for example, but where's the basis? I know anyone can argue on that front. So different schools of thoughts are speaking to this matter.
And you see, it's extremely important to also understand what the Constitutional Court stated in the judgment in paragraph 52 of the judgment. I speak to the judgment because it speaks to the law. It is the law currently. As long as the judgment has not been revisited, whether paying curiam or whatever, it is still law. The court further acknowledged one thing. It said, as the custodian of the Constitution, we take cognizance of the importance of our decision in this matter, as it is critical for protecting the Constitution in its current form and spirit. As the fulcrum of the legal system, the Constitution is not only expected to stand the test of time, but enjoy the legality, legitimacy, and public trust needed to ensure its acceptance. Now, if our colleagues were those that would actually read into the court and the language of the court, they would know that whether we like it or not, you cannot use Article 79 of the Constitution to legitimize an illegality. It can't work. As long as something is illegal, it remains illegal. And at this point, let me tell you the possibilities. And the Zambian people need to know the possibilities of what may come to pass. In an event where the court decides that the process was unconstitutional, and the court decides that Bill 7 ought to have been withdrawn from the floor of the House, it simply means that the provisions that deal with supremacy of the Constitution kick in, and it shall remind the National Assembly to say, anything done, any act or omission that is done, which is inconsistent or ultraviates the provisions of this Constitution, is a nullity ab initio, and as such, that shall be declared a nullity. So we're looking at a process where a lot of government funds have been expended by this government, which is potentially a nullity. This process is potentially a nullity. I'm in court today. I took the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Minister of Justice and cited them with contempt. The court is yet to decide on that. In an event where the court agree with my position that our colleagues ought to have withdrawn Bill 7 from the floor of the House, it will have meant that the entire process must be considered a nullity. So they've celebrated too early. Let President Hakainde today go and consult his Attorney General. Let him go and consult his Attorney General whether you can use the provisions of Article 79 to legitimize an unconstitutional process.
Are you saying the Attorney General didn't know all these things?
I don't know, but I'm telling you.
He has a different view.
I do not know, but I'm telling you that as a custodian, I'm equally a custodian of the Constitution. As one who saw in to protect and defend the Constitution. By the way, amongst the other oaths of office that lawyers undertake is an oath to pledge allegiance to the President of the Republic of Zambia. I have pledged allegiance to the President of the Republic of Zambia to the extent that when he is doing something wrong against the provisions of the Constitution, I am duty bound, inherently so in the Constitution, to go and tell him to say, sir, what you are doing is unconstitutional, it is wrong. This president was told by myself to say, sir, stop it. It's a wrong process. He did not listen. This president was told by the Law Association of Zambia to say, sir, stop it. It's an unlawful process. Stop it. He did not listen. This president was told by the church that it is an unlawful process that you've undertaken, and therefore stop. He did not listen. It had to take me to go to court to say, I think our old man, our big man here doesn't want to listen, to advise, because I've got a duty to advise him. He doesn't want to listen to my advice. So what do? I go to the Constitutional Court and obtain a judgment. The court in this case now gave this man, called President Hakainde Hichilema, the custodian of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, an instruction to say, sir, what you did in commencing Bill, the process of amending the Constitution, through Bill 7, goes against the spirit of the Constitution, and therefore, you must use a different process. Now, the court went further to say, the process you must use is one that replicates previous processes, because you've already created legitimate expectation as to how a constitution can be amended in Zambia. It's as clear as that. So, me being a custodian or one that has got a duty inherent in the constitution, and by virtue of the oath of office that I undertook, I must tell this president to say, Mr. President, this is the wrong process, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal. Stop it.
But so what?
And I have told him he doesn't want to listen. What is next is...
Definitely. Every constitutional amendment process has always received criticism. Not everyone will agree with the process.
But not to the extent of where there is a judgment of court guiding you of the process you must undertake. The Constitutional Court was clear. In no uncertain terms, you must replicate previous processes. That's all.
Last week, we had a seasoned lawyer on that seat who said he didn't say anything wrong. Comrade Winter Kabemba.
He should have, and I'll tell you, Comrade Winter, State Council,
lawyer, senior lawyer.
And I'll tell you, yes, State Council Winter Kabimba was not part of this matter. I'm telling you, as a person in the body
with an invested interest here from the Patriotic Front.
I have repeated more than once to say the fight against Bill 7 must never be understood to be a political fight. Let's be clear on this, comrade. As long as one is Zambian, Article 5 of the Constitution of the Republic gives you a duty to protect this Constitution. Now, I was exercising my duty under Article 5 of the Constitution to protect the sanctity of the Constitution. This fight must not be understood as one which is politically inclined. Yes, the politics has come in. Because of my affiliation to the Patriotic Front, it does not remove me from the duty I have to ensure that the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia is protected and defended at all cost. And I've said it on more than 3, 4, 5 occasions that don't mistake this fight to be a political fight. It's not. It is a fight that deals with the supremacy of the country, the supremacy of the people of the Republic, the supremacy of the Constitution. We mustn't mix the two. Yes, on political fronts, I'll fight that. But I've said it, and I've put it on record to say, I shall ensure that on top of the fact that I've got a duty under the Constitution in Article 5, I also have an oath of office that I saw in to protect and defend the Constitution. Now, this enhances the duty that I have. I have placed it on record that I shall protect and defend the Constitution of the Republic, even if it meant doing so with my life. I have placed that to the nation.
You're willing.
I'm willing to die for this Constitution. I'm willing to die for the protection of this Constitution, because this Constitution gives me the rights. It gives my children rights. It gives my wife the rights that she has. So, colleagues, these are issues that goes to the core of family. It goes to the core of your relatives, my good comrade. It goes to the core of your rights. Anything that is done by those that wield authority today, violating the Constitution, violates your rights as an individual. And we mustn't take it lightly. Any day, any time, I will tell you, we mustn't take it lightly. The protection of the Constitution must never be understood to be a protection or a political move. No, it's not.
I said earlier that, yes, there are these concerns that people have had, different stakeholders. You've mentioned the church, you've mentioned Laz, but it's now law. So what what does it look like for the future? Yes, there are some court cases, a number of them have been dismissed. All MPs were cited, including the clerks, the speaker. That case was dismissed. A number of cases are being dismissed. So what is next?
So let me make things very clear, and I want you to understand. The first thing we did was to drag the entire... In fact, the first thing I did with my good comrade Munirizo was to commence contempt proceedings against the Speaker and the Minister of Justice. The reason behind the contempt was that we were contending that the Speaker ought to have withdrawn Bill 7 from the floor of the House because it was potentially contemptuous to maintain it. We also contended that the respondent, being the minister, the mover of the motion, the mover of the bill, the sponsor of the bill, being the minister and the state, ought to have withdrawn her bill. Failure to do that is contempt. That is what we are contending in our matter. Yeah? Now, the process is still underway in court. And before you know it, we hear that the mover of the motion decides to proceed with activating Bill 7. Now we say, yeah, gentlemen, this cannot be. We're dealing with legal issues here. Can we be serious? Then we drag the entire National Assembly to court. That being the 156, or is it 56 or 66 MPs plus the clerks, all the clerks. We dragged them to the national to court, and we wanted to cite them for contempt. Now, the process we used, and I want you to understand why it's extremely important for the Zambian people to know. The process that we wanted to undertake to commence that action was one that dealt with interlocutory proceedings within the course of a matter. Yeah? The what? The process. And because of that, the court guided to say, no. This matter is already concluded. The law you've used to initiate this process is not the correct law. And therefore, I cannot proceed with this. I am throwing it out. Why was it thrown out? Because of process, which needed to protect the content. Yeah? The matter was thrown out. Now, we went back and said, colleagues, these people are going to violate this constitution. We can't let them. Let's recommence. Then we recommenced the matter. Now this time around, using the correct law. But again, this time around, we said, no, because the MPs have not yet sat to discuss or debate this, let us reduce the list. We just cite the clerks and the technical committee, plus the speakers. And we did that, using the correct law. We are waiting for a date. By tomorrow, by Monday, we are likely to be given a date by the court, so that we cite these colleagues for contempt also. Now, bear in mind that there is a process that resulted into the matter being thrown out. There was a process to commence Bill 7, which was declared unconstitutional, or it went against the spirit of the Constitution. And therefore, what did that mean? These colleagues that handled the process were supposed to throw it out. Did they do that? They did not. So these are synonymous scenarios. Now, going forward, the colleagues went further and even decided to enact the bill into law. Now we've got Constitutional Amendment Act number 2. In the interim, number 7. In the interim, before our matters in court could be concluded, this is the constitution that we have. We don't have an option but to follow it. However, suffice to note that the Constitutional Court, where whose authority emanates from this same constitution, can decide. Remember, there is a system or a process of separation of powers, and also the process or a doctrine of checks and balances. The courts have got the right to check the operations of the legislature and the executive arm. And they can make orders to the effect that certain provisions were supposed to be withdrawn.
What happens in that case?
If the court will rule that it was supposed to be withdrawn, then you cannot legitimize the process by way of use of Article 79. And perhaps at that point, the court will go further to indicate that you cannot legitimize the process. And this is a simple issue. It's provided for in the law, you know. And the acknowledgement of the supremacy of the Constitution goes further. In Article 1 of the Constitution, it says, this Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic of Zambia. And any other written law, customary practice that is inconsistent with its provision is void to the extent of the inconsistency. It goes on to say, an act or omission that contravenes this Constitution is illegal. And it goes on to say, this Constitution shall bind all persons in Zambia, state organs and state institutions. The validity or legality of this Constitution is not subject to challenge by or before a state organ or other forum. Matters relating to this Constitution shall be heard by the Constitutional Court. Now, you see, an illegality cannot be made legal. It's clear. That is why I'm saying I challenge today the Attorney General of the Republic of Zambia to go back to his boss, the appointing authority, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde, and answer him these questions. What happens when this is declared a nullity? What happens when the court decides that the Speaker ought to have withdrawn Bill 7? What happens?
Do you see matters going that way?
I don't think we've got men and women of integrity at that bench. As counsel, I will tell you that the integrity that I see in the courts, it is the only institutions of government that is able to defend our democracy and our constitution. Because the very oath that I undertook is the very oath that the judges undertook to defend and protect the constitution. And I will tell you, our colleagues may have forgotten the oath of office they undertook. The ones in the National Assembly, they forgot. Because to begin with, the moment we had that judgment in the Mukandila case, these colleagues ought to have commenced impeachment processes against President Hakainde for having violated not one provision, but 10 provisions.
And yet,
they sat on their duty.
And yet, a number of MPs from your party voted for this.
And I will tell you, an action has been taken because the Patriotic Front is a law-abiding party, one that respects the supremacy of the Constitution of the Republic, one that respects the constituent authority that emanates from the people of Zambia.
That can be argued.
The Patriotic Front is a party that respects that, and an action has been taken. We have heeded to the call by the people to say we must protect and defend our constitution. And the protection and defense of the constitution starts from the very fact that the Constitutional Court ruled.
Why do you think your own MPs didn't think this way? Why do you think your own MPs voted for the bill?
It is for them to tell the Zambian people.
Your own members of parliament?
That is what I'm saying. It is for them to tell the Zambian people. As it stands, they stand expelled.
Despite a directive coming in from the party, yet they went...
And that's the indiscipline that we're talking about, that we've seen.
Maybe they saw the beauty in the bill.
But... you see, Parliament runs on processes and procedures. It takes you back to processes and procedures.
That has been understood.
And just a minute. Yes. And it takes you back to the authority upon which a sponsoring party will have. Remember, these political parties now are constitutional bodies, by the way. So when you are given an instruction on a 3-line whip to say the directive is this, the position of the party is this, and this is the direction we'll take, and you go against that instruction, the party reserves the right to withdraw its sponsorship. The party reserves the right to withdraw its sponsorship. these seats that are held by political parties belonging to by individuals, members of parliament belonging to political parties, they don't belong to a political player alone. No.
Many have indicated that, look, the same given window that has expelled these does not even have the authority to do so. It doesn't even have the powers to do so, according to the Constitution. Many have said, look, the party is in the hands of Honorable Robert Chavinga, who, according to him, we've learned a new word, Lugwalo. He's the one with the Lugwalo. He's the one with the documents for the party. So whatever decisions given Lubinda is making are now and void. These are remarks that Honorable Chavinga has reaffirmed. These are also the remarks that, similar remarks that the government has said, look, those MPs were doing an official duty, a constitutional duty in the National Assembly, and none of them should be expelled.
I don't normally take seriously individuals who waste taxpayers' money in that National Assembly. And individuals such as Robert Chavinga, and now we've got the Minister of Misinformation, Cornelius Mwetwa. So colleagues, let Cornelius go and conduct himself in a manner that is opposed to the rules or conduct of their political party, the UPND. And I will tell you, do you know that President Hakainde expelled Grayford Monde? President Hakainde expelled Dawson Kafwaya for going against the decision of their party because they were sponsors for those individuals. Why should you stop them from being, you want to say no, because they're in the National Assembly conducting the functions of Cap 12. Come on, let's be realistic. And besides, it's not even the first time it's happening.
It's not the first time. Michael Sata tried to expel those 17, 18, but the court of
no, Bwana, you don't have facts.
I know the facts.
We had 22 by-elections and PF regained all the 22 by-elections. We won all the 22 by-elections. Michael Sata expelled 22 members of parliament. So it's on record. The Zambian people know. And that is why I'm saying the expelling of members of parliament is not this is not the first time it is happening. It is not the first time, and it shall continue to happen until we have disciplined members who respect the
Constitution.
Constitution.
Away from that, your party president does not have the powers.
Which powers?
Because the documents are not with him.
Which document? And it's extremely important. I think at this point, let me make it very clear. Chavinga is not president of PF. Be it him posing as a faction leader or whatever, it is not. The institution or documentation that deal with PF are held by the so-called Ngona, who appears at Registrar of Society as Secretary General. Chavinga appears on that list as a committee member. And according to them, in their shenanigans, they decided that they've expelled Miles Sampa and Chavinga would act as such. The court decided in a ruling in court in Lusaka. The court decided in a ruling that Chavinga was expelled and Ngona was expelled. The status quo could not change. They were expelled by Miles Sampa. There's a ruling of court. So colleagues, whatever actions this Chavinga is doing or is taking is actually potentially contempt. In fact, it is contemptuous. I am aware that there is a matter before court right now as we are talking, where Miles Sampa has commenced contempt proceedings against Chavinga and Ngona for even posing out as Secretary General and acting president, respectively.
I know there's that case in Kabwe also that
there's a Kabwe matter where Ngona commenced a matter despite having been aware of a ruling of the Lusaka court. Now, I'll tell you this, my brother, as a lawyer, to begin with, where I get to learn that my client lied to me, that they had authority to commence a matter, that they had the locus to commence a matter. I find out that my client lied to me. The first thing I would do is to call my client and advise my client to say, Bwana, I've just learned of this. Documents have been filed and served on me by the court. And therefore, I am withdrawing from representing you. Because I cannot be part of an illegality. Lawyers are officers of the court. Our primary duty is to the court. and not to our clients. And remember this. I would have expected that by now, the lawyer that was representing or is representing Ngona in Kabwe would have advised his client to say, I'm withdrawing from the matter because of this factor. There's a ruling that has been filed into this to indicate that you did not even have locus.
The MPs that have been expelled have not been named.
So that is why I'm saying, let's watch the space.
No, but how do you expel?
Jokers like Chavinga will continue talking. Let me tell you. Let's watch the space. Jokers like Chavinga will continue joking and issuing whatever
You're referring
instructions.
to him as a joker?
I mean, if we had to award jokers in politics, Chavinga would be amongst those that will receive an award. Any day, any time, I will tell you. Let them continue with that. But as counsel, and having been endowed with the responsibility as Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General Administration in the Patriotic Front, I will tell you that I shall administer the administrative process of the party.
You don't know that
in
that communique says you're yet to know
I will,
MPs that voted for Bill 7, the ones that you've expelled. So you've just expelled, in abstract. You don't even know the individuals. All letters have been served on the MPs.
Buana, I will tell you that we've been in this thing for the longest time. And as a matter of fact, we are in possession of the details of all the MPs. My office, being the one handling the administration of the party, by now I will tell you that the letters are ready.
Not yet served.
There is one item we are waiting for. They shall be served on these individuals.
What are you waiting for?
And I've told you that let's wait, relax. And the Zambian people will get to appreciate that discipline is very core and very important.
Some members
let's not give. I was talking to a colleague yesterday who said, I've seen the provincial chairman for, is it Copperbelt resigning?
Yes,
and he's decided to rescind his decision again. I said, that's indiscipline in itself. How do you decide? You indicate you go against a decision of the party and you want to say you want to come back. No one is indispensable in this party. And Michael Sata was very firm on that. Nobody is indispensable in this party called the Patriotic Front. Not even me. Tomorrow, President Lubinda can decide to withdraw my appointment. And he's got the power and right and duty to do it. He's got the power to withdraw my appointment. I am not indispensable. The Patriotic Front is not short of leaders or people who can replace you at any time when you leave.
The cracks
you leave.
Deeper, actually, in the Patriotic
My brother will tell you
7 months to election.
Why I'm telling
getting deeper. Worrying some of your members.
Why I am telling you that no one is indispensable is because I want you to understand. You leave today, tomorrow you'll be replaced. There's no crack there. You are not an immortal being. You are not one that holds this position in perpetuity.
If your MPs can defy your directive.
That is why they've been expelled. They are not indispensable also. We can dispense with them. If we can only agree to remain only 3 people in the Patriotic Front who shall follow the processes and procedures of the party and respect the fact that the party must exist in the respect of this constitution of the party, we shall do it. Nobody is indispensable. None of us. Today, by the time I'm leaving this program this evening, President Lubinda can decide that I'm off. Done, Kwamana. I'm not indispensable. And it must be understood as such. Tomorrow, President Hakainde can decide to fire any of his ministers. Nobody is indispensable. And it must be understood. We don't, you see, it's a privilege to hold these positions. It's not a right. And people need to understand. It is not a right for you to hold these positions. It is a privilege that is given to you by this institution called the Patriotic Front. When you are given a privilege, conduct yourself in a manner that respects the institution.
Don't you
One that does not bring the name of the party into disrepute.
don't you think that it's important for these members of parliament to be independent in their thinking? Yeah, the critical thinking should not be eluded from them just because they're members of the Patriotic Front. If they feel that the bill is good for their people in their constituencies, no one should gag them or should direct how they think. Don't you think it's that important to respect that? Aren't you being autocratic as a political party?
I talked about the constituent authority that is in the National Assembly, which comes from the Constitution. The Constitution is a representation of the Zambian people. I want you to understand that. Now, members of parliament who are sponsored by political parties, they do caucus. They go out there to caucus within themselves as a political party. They advance not only an agenda for their people in the constituency, but also an agenda for the sponsoring political party. Understand that? Yeah. So parliamentary processes and procedures, it is normal for a party to issue a 3-line whip. It is the highest degree of whipping members of parliament, of instructing members of parliament. And it is legal. It is a normal process in parliamentary process and proceedings. Every person understands. So why should you remove the authority that this party has from the party?
Some have indicated that.
Why should you argue that no, we even, there's another school of thought that said no, you needed to conduct, you needed to give them a right to be heard. These are individuals that were not met once, not twice, but 8 times to be guided as to this same bill.
How many do you meet?
All the members of parliament.
Not all.
For the Patriotic Front.
Including Robert Chavinga.
Chavinga is a rogue individual that was, but initially he was actually met.
Including.
Before he was even rogue.
Mumba?
I am telling you. Yes, Anthony Mumba equally attended a meeting that was held at the Oasis Forum. A meeting that was sanctioned by the Patriotic Front. A letter of intent was written to the Patriotic Front, and the Patriotic Front, through the president, Given Lubinda, approved and said, please, Oasis Forum, if it will also take you to ensure that our members of parliament understand what we are dealing with, you may go ahead and meet them. They met at Kapingira House. They met, the members of parliament. Ask them. You should ask them about 53, 54. They met at that place. Opposition members of parliament, including independent members of parliament. They met all of them there.
And yet they did the opposite.
So you will not tell me today that they were not instructed and they did not know what happened. And they do not understand parliamentary. Today someone should rise up and say they don't understand parliamentary procedure with regards to a 3-line whip. Others
have said that they were bribed. Any truth to that?
The allegations of bribery. And I am aware that Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba has reported to the police, which is the Anti-Corruption Commission. We'll wait for the investigations from the Anti-Corruption Commission. However, colleagues, let's be reminded, we can't sell the dignity, the integrity of our constitution. We sell it for peanuts, for money. No, we can't do that. It's in principle. We must remain patriotic. Patriotism must entail that. Even just integrity. Integrity entails that you do the right thing even where no one is watching. Why would our colleagues lack integrity and even get any coin that is given to them by individuals that want to mutilate this constitution?
Others have said this because there's a lot of leadership challenges in the Patriotic Front.
What leadership challenges?
The issue of the legitimacy of the presidency is still a matter yet to be concluded. There's the issue of Robert Chavinga claiming to be acting president. Given Lubinda also as acting president. Other people like Chimba Kambuli saying, look, this is the only president. In fact, he's not acting president. He is president of the party. All these, confusions.
My brother, the Patriotic Front, like many other political parties, has got a constitution. The constitution of the Patriotic Front provides in Article 54. It provides for the functions and powers of the Vice President. It goes further to provide that where there is a death of president, the vice president assumes the functions and powers of president. The functions and powers of president are provided for in Article 61 of the Constitution. Now, at that point, the moment the vice president assumes, you cannot call him acting president. You call him president. He is president of the party. You can't, whether you like given Lubinda or not, the Constitution has given him the mandate. He's president. You will not run away from it. Those are clear provisions. He's president until the next conference. And the next conference of the party shall be held not later than later. I mean, sooner than later. We are just waiting to conclude the Kawe matter.
If it drops,
and by the way, the process of planning has not stopped.
If that matter in the Kawe court drags,
it shall not drag.
Oh, we've had many cases
And
dragging.
I want to tell you this.
So
I want to tell you this.
there.
I want to tell you this. And I've been on record indicating to say, colleagues, it's not every time that we need to politicize the integrity of the courts. Can we at once, I'm speaking as counsel, but can we at once realize that we've got a court system in Zambia that is constitutionally provided for? A person with integrity to run as or to be a judge would know that as a judge, you run and protected by the Constitution. The integrity of the body of law must be maintained. You operate independently because the Constitution gives you the independence, devoid of any political interference. But we've created this monster that the judges can be controlled by the executive at any time. Yes, there are these one or two individuals who would want to flex their power. But I believe the integrity required of a judge is one that would go out there and make a decision which is very independent.
You believe in the independence of the judiciary?
I want to believe in the independence of the integrity of the judges. I don't want to say the judiciary. I say I want to believe in the integrity.
They are components under the
integrity.
judiciary.
Yes,
the
Bwana.
integrity of the judiciary.
Bwana, listen, I'm very clear. I believe in the integrity required by a judge in the judiciary or at the bench. I believe our colleagues have got the relevant integrity and they can do the right thing unless they have to be reminded.
Have they demonstrated that so far?
Well, for me, I will tell you that there's been a lot, and I mean a lot of intimidation coming from the state, the executive arm. But I think at some point I'm meant to believe that argue your matter well, you'll be able to secure a correct judgment. I secured the correct judgment in the matter of Bill 7. And the reason is because we argued our matter very well. And we gave legal reasoning. The same way that we believe in no uncertain terms that whatever matters we are putting before court are placed there on the premise of proper research, on the premise of the fact that we have established predictability in the law, and we've established legal principles that will not change or will not deviate or injure the
Why
jurisprudence.
then are some of your members in the PF claiming that the judiciary is not independent when you are...
It's for them to answer. For me, I'm telling you that yes, you may say the judiciary is not independent. However, I want to believe in the integrity of the judges.
Why are you singling out the judges?
I know, because these are lawyers. You get it? Because these are lawyers. And as an individual called Mukandila, I've got ethics and moral conduct and ethics that are endowed on me as a lawyer by the profession. And that is why I'm singling out the issue to say I want to believe in the integrity that the judges must have.
Which they've demonstrated in recent past.
Yes.
Which they've demonstrated.
In my matter, I got an affirmative judgment. Did that show that our colleagues refused to be bulldozed? Yes, it did. But I do not want to say that the judiciary is independent.
Why?
Or not compromised.
Why?
But what I want to say is the judges.
You're not very clear on that. You're twisting your tongue on that, counsel.
My brother, listen.
That's very
It
important.
doesn't require rocket science to explain
that's
this.
very important because many in your party have said the opposite. That the judiciary is not independent.
It's for them to, you see.
You are holding a similar position in this party where some of your members have said the opposite.
I have described the concept to say, I shall not say the judiciary is not independent. I mean, the judiciary is not independent. I shall say I believe in the integrity that the judges must have. That in itself will tell you to say whether they decide to be independent or not.
Which they've demonstrated in the recent past.
They've demonstrated in recent past, some of them, and I want to
only when it goes in your favor, then it's but when it goes against you, then
not even that. Not even that. My brother, listen. For me, I do not only wear the jacket of a politician as Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General. I also wear the hat of a lawyer, and I cannot openly criticize the court, unfortunately. But I will remind you to say, because the courts are lawyers,
even when you have concerns about the,
I will privately write to them to say I'm concerned about this. If I'm appearing before this judge, I will personally rise on a point and request the judge to recuse themselves for failing to be independent. That will be my right at that point. But outside here, I'm constrained, unfortunately. I wish I could be a politician who will not have a hat of a counsel or a lawyer. Then at that point I can decide to go and insult the judges at will.
Let's, as we get to prepare to wrap up the conversation, if the expulsion of these MPs stand, you are ready to go for by-elections?
The Patriotic Front, in responding to the Zambian people's call for the protection and defense of the Constitution, is ready to defend the integrity of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. It is ready to defend the will of the Zambian people. The Patriotic Front is ready to go for elections if the date of the election shall fall within the constitutional mandate.
How many of these MPs are being expelled?
I think there should be about 32.
32.
I must look at the list that I have again.
And the letters are ready.
Yeah.
32 MPs.
It should be 32, somewhere there.
Are you able to name any?
No.
Why? When you already know them.
Now
we know we know that only 2 voted against Bill 7, so and we know who was in the house at that point.
I want not to divulge that information.
Why?
Individual members of parliament would receive their letters, and those letters are cited confidential. You shall see those that will be declared, whose seats will be declared now and void by the Speaker. The letter will be written to the Speaker very soon.
Government has said that they should not.
Government is, you see, that is why I'm telling you, Cornelius Mwetwa should know better. He's of counsel, for crying out loud. He should know better not to mislead the Zambian people. He shouldn't mislead the Zambian people. And yet, this is the quality of ministers Zakainde said he was going to have. Those that want to come to the people and lie to them to say, no, it's anality. These MPs were conducting their jobs according to Cap 12. They are protected by Cap. Yes, you are protected by Cap 12 to do whatever, but the party has sponsored you. Let Cornelius go and make a statement in that National Assembly that goes against government policy. We see if he's not going to be expelled from that party. Let him do that. The party reserves the right to expel him. He shouldn't go out there and lie to the Zambian people.
Is this the right?
Unfortunately, and this is what we are subjected to. Misinformation from the biggest office required to give information which is correct to the Zambian people. This is what we are subjected to. This level of misinformation is extremely worrying. And I feel this is what President Hakainde is subjected to. Lies by people who don't want to tell him the truth. This is what he is subjected to. And clearly it shows that the leadership requires a lot of sanitization. We need to sanitize those colleagues there.
There's no sanity in the leadership.
There's nothing.
There's no sanity in the leadership.
There
of
is
this
no
country,
sanity in the leadership of this country. We need to sanitize that. So in order for us to ensure that people should speak based on procedure, based on principle of law, based on policy. You can't go out there and lie to people to say, no, this and, come on. Cornelius must know. He's been a member of parliament for 15 years now. And he was in that parliament when his colleagues, the likes of Greyford, the likes of, were expelled by his party.
Let's get to hear your readiness for the Chawama parliamentary by-election.
Well, as you are aware, the Patriotic Front is an alliance, which is the Tonse Alliance, with other political players. And as an alliance, we decided to use FDD as a special purpose vehicle for that particular by-election. And as a result of the said, we fielded in a candidate under FDD, very astute gentleman, very qualified gentleman, better quality as compared to UPND members of parliament, even those that are serving now. And he's one that speaks to the grassroots, rooted in the grassroots, one who understands government process and procedures, former permanent secretary. So clearly, you know, the position of permanent secretary is that of a CEO in government, you get. So this is a person, a quality of person that we've put up there as a candidate for Chawama. And is a perfect replacement for our sister, Tasila Lungu. And as a result, we are very confident that the Tonse Alliance candidate, Mr. Bright Nundwe, is going to succeed. And is going to succeed because the Patriotic Front will defend its seat.
Last time, the Patriotic Front through Tonse won a seat in Patriotic Central. Your MP seems to have run away from you.
The party
NCP that was used as equally fielded in their own candidate in Chawama.
And NCP is no longer part of Tonse Alliance.
Possibly after this, even FTD might not be. The PF seems to be having real trouble.
Politics is based on trust. Those who are not honest enough to come on the negotiating table of alliances with trust.
So at this point,
it is them.
At this point, PF is desperate for a special purpose vehicle because on your own, you cannot use the PF to participate. You have to keep on begging other political parties to use their party for you to participate in an election through Tonse. What a predicament for you as a PF.
It is not the PF. I want to remind you, it is not the PF. We are part of an alliance. The alliance itself will decide which special purpose vehicle to use.
No, they can't use PF. Even if the alliance wanted to use PF, they can't
in
use
an
PF
event where we are done with our matters, we are done with our matters internally. Why not? But I want to encourage you that we as an alliance, we decide as a group, as a unit, what policy direction to undertake. And whatever we do in the best interest of the Zambian people. Because we are called in as Tonse, together, Pamozi, to ensure that we live up to the expectation and the call from the Zambian people. So, the Patriotic Front, being a member of the alliance, living up to the core of the alliance, we have maintained and will continue to be in the alliance to ensure that the Zambian people get what they deserve. Quality leadership, experienced leadership, and also one that will listen to the Zambian people.
Is that quality leadership that you put up in Patriotic Central?
Well, it is quality leadership as according to what we thought was in the alliance.
You still think the same?
Well, according to what we thought when we were adopting, it is quality.
You think the same?
It is quality leadership. But have they betrayed us? Yes, they have betrayed our trust. So it's an issue of trust and betrayals that have happened.
Betrayed.
The NCP, the new Congress party, has betrayed the trust of not only Tonse Alliance, it has betrayed the trust of the Zambian people.
They can decide to walk out.
They can decide to walk out. They can decide to walk out.
They're not bound to be there forever.
Exactly the point.
So how is that betrayal?
Now here's the thing. the betrayal is based on the fact that there was participation in the process, an illegal and constitutional process of Bill 7. And that is where the betrayal is. You know, the biggest betrayal in the political setup of this country today to the Zambian people is the voting of that Bill 7 by those members of parliament.
As we wrap up, how do you look at, your fellow Deputy Secretary General Mao Sampa? Because many have said he's the one that brought these problems on the Patriotic Front. Remember the 2023, alleged conference, that convention took place at Mulongoshi International Conference Center on 24th of October. Many said, and I remember, many statements in speaking to many people from the PF, regarding Mao Sampa as a sellout. But now you are dining with him, enjoying the same office as yourself. How do you perceive that now? Isn't that interesting on your end as a PF?
You see, I want you to understand that politics, in essence, does not create permanent enemies. Extremely important to understand. Politics does not create permanent enemies. A person who decides to come back in a house they left, being very remorseful and pledging to continue on a path of righteousness, should be understood as such. There is nothing wrong with readmitting an individual who left and came back. Besides, the Bible is also very clear. There is the story of the prodigal son who left and still came back, and a big feast was designed and made for that person.
So you acknowledge that he's the one that brought the problems that you have now.
You see, res ipsa loquita, facts are speaking for themselves. However, that does not remove from him the quality that he has in terms of managing the office that has been a privilege.
But you acknowledge that he's the one that brought the PF to where they are.
The facts will speak for themselves. However,
it does not take away. No, you're not answering my question.
But I've just answered. No. Say facts are speaking for themselves. The facts in law we say res ipsa loquita. So now I'm telling you, facts are speaking for themselves.
He brought the problems.
I don't know whether the challenges we have were initiated by his grouping.
You acknowledge that?
The challenges we have were initiated by his grouping. However, that does not take away from him the quality
that
leadership.
Brought the problems that
and here's no.
What qualities are those that can bring you where you are?
The quality of leadership.
You can't even participate in an election. You have to keep
what matters right now, my brother, is how then do we move forward from those problems that
you have to acknowledge the problem and the source of the problem.
No one has ever refused to acknowledge the problem. No one has ever refused. And any day, any time, it has gone down in the history of this country that Miles Sampa, once upon a time, on the 24th of October 2023, is it 2022? 2023, went and had a very unconventional convention. It's gone down in the history of this country. But that does not take away from you and me that once upon a time in PF, we had one information and publicity chairman, who was my chairman, because I was in his committee, who was the loudest mouth and he spoke against Hakainde day in, day out. But today, he's in the presidential campaign team for Hakainde.
Who's that?
Frank Bwalia. It will not take away from you that we had Sylvia Masebo, who was once in PF, talk bad about Hakainde, but she's one of the closest acquaintances or colleagues in UPND cabinet to Hakainde. So that is how politics turns out, unfortunately. But that should not take away the fact that there are also those of us who've decided to only belong to PF our entire lives in the shortest period that we've been in politics. And we've decided to maintain our integrity.
Too early to call, politicians.
That's what I'm saying. There are also those like myself who, up to date, we have decided to do this. That doesn't mean that I cannot eventually in life move on, because politics is dynamic.
As we wrap up, many have said that yes, I've said we're wrapping up, but let me wrap up quickly. You know, many have said, director is hinting to me that that time is up. Many have said that you have forgotten as a Patriotic Front that they are yet to bury your former leader. No one is talking about that anymore. Even the person that was family spokesperson for the Lungo family, every time he's before the cameras, his focus is politics now. What's happening to ECL from the Patriotic Front point of view?
From the Patriotic Front point of view, we are yet to bury our fallen hero from the Patriotic Front point of view. And it must be understood that the Patriotic Front is called to serve the Zambian people. Matters of burial of the former president are within the control of the family. And as the Patriotic Front, we have agreed in principle and morally that we shall respect the right and role of the family when it comes to the burying of the former president. We shall not at any point deviate from respecting the right of the family.
The family spokesperson is
The family spokesperson is only Honorable Makebi Zulu is only but a spokesperson. The position of spokesperson is a position of appointment. It does not make him part of the family. He's not a family member. And it's very clear, it's very important for the Zambian people to know. Honorable Makebi Zulu is not a family member to the Lungu family, no. He was only appointed as spokesperson and can decide to independently operate on the premise of the fact that he was just appointed.
What?
So if he's going to decide today to do his politics, there's nothing wrong with that. But when duty calls for his role as family representative or family spokesperson, he shall go back and represent that.
What is the current status? Are the matters in court? Is the family and government talking? What is the current status? It's quiet.
I think I am not averse to the status currently. However, I'm aware, or we are all aware of as Zambians, is that we've not yet buried our former president. And there were matters that were in court in South Africa. So I think that is where we are.
Thank you so much, Celeste Mkanjira, for coming through on tonight's edition of Matters Arising.
Thank you very much for having me, and may I remind the Zambian people that it's extremely important for us to be reminded of protecting and defending the Constitution. Thank you.
Celeste Mkanjira.